A 7-member delegation of senior U.S. trade officials has arrived in Beijing for trade talks. During the 2-day visit, they'll be received by Vice Premier Liu He. Liu will discuss economic and trade issues plaguing the two countries and seek ways to halt the tit-for-tat punitive tariffs. CGTN's Wang has more.
China has long been a firm supporter of free trade. Beijing says America's plan to impose tariffs on Chinese goods is protectionist and unilateralist. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterated their deep dissatisfaction and said that China is ready to fight back. Also, China is willing to further open up its market to other countries. Chinese President Xi Jinping recently said at the Boao Forum in Asia that China is not pursuing a trade surplus and instead is willing to further open up its market and let other countries benefit from China's development. Beijing has also announced new measures to further open up its financial market and strengthen the protection of intellectual property rights. In terms of these negotiations, Beijing welcomes the American delegation to come to China to talk about this issue. Talks will be held on Thursday and Friday, but Beijing hasn't released any details about the meeting. The spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Hua Chunying, responded to a question about the upcoming talks on Wednesday. She said that negotiations are no doubt in the fundamental interest of the two countries, but she also voiced caution about the outcome of the negotiations.
Well, let's bring you more on this story. We're now joined by CGTN Zhou Yun in Beijing for more on those trade talks. Of course, 2 days of talks that are expected to de-escalate tensions. Zhou Yun, just give us an update. Have those talks gotten underway as yet?
Hello there, the U.S. delegation has arrived in Beijing earlier today, yet since the trade talk is closed door, so far we haven't got much information about the progress or outcome of the meeting. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin told reporters upon arriving at his hotel that he's thrilled to be here, but he's made no other comments on expected outcome. And if we take a closer look at the makeup of the delegation, we'll find two things. The first is the great importance attached by the U.S. government on the trade talks by sending such a high-profile and heavyweight delegation. The other is the mixed stance within the Trump administration on Chinese issues. Or for instance, the head of the delegation, Steven Mnuchin, who is more in the camp of engaging with China because he was seen as one of the administration's globalists in opposition to the tariffs. But in recent months, he has voiced strong support for Trump's tougher trade approach to China and still an alumni tariffs. And the other one is the Peter Navarro, who's also like extreme China hawk, who once said that if you allow China to basically capture the industries of the future, then we won't have a future. And finally, there are also classic Republic free trader like Larry Kudlow, who's frequently criticized Trump's tariffs approach, but since taking the job, he has referred to the tariffs as a negotiating tactic aimed at achieving fairer trade relationships. So within this furious stance on China and the Trump administration, we're still waiting to see that what consensus can be reached, and that's also why the U.S. is cautiously optimistic about the meeting. Back to you.
And as of course you suggest, the makeup of the U.S. delegation certainly does give us some clues. But what about China? What stance is China likely to take over these talks, and what should we expect at the conclusion of the meetings?
Well, China has expressed the willingness to negotiate the trade friction issue with the U.S. through dialogue a couple of times before. And for this time, China Foreign Ministry said that China welcomes the visit. As the world's top two largest economies, the U.S. and China should properly resolve the relevant disputes through equal-footed consultation and maintain the long-term stability of the China-U.S. economic and trade ties. And many experts say that the solution to the trade dispute must be fair. And there's no need for China to take too many consensus this time. And it's also unrealistic for the U.S. to expect that its trade war stick will force China to take whatever the U.S. delegation offers. And the Foreign Ministry also said that there's never practical to imagine all the problems can be solved or wiped out through just one-time consultation. However, as long as the U.S. is sincere about maintaining the long-term stability of the bilateral economic ties, as well as comes to the negotiating table with mutual respect, equal-footed consultation, and win-win results in mind, then China believes that the bilateral consultation would be constructive. Back to the studio.
So Yun, thank you so much joining us there live from Beijing.